Let me just check.
Welcome back after the break. Thank you very much to Professor Holm-Nielsen and all the speakers. It's time for the last part of our conference today. You will need about 30 more minutes to stay with us. Title of the part is The Impact Ranking. Host, Mr. Phil Beatty. Now we are taking you to United Kingdom. Hello again. It's your time.
Hello again. Thank you. Over to me. So thank you very much for having me, and thanks for staying with us. I know this is a special session at the end of the day and a long, busy day, so thank you very much. I have some slides which I hope to share with you. I have a remote control which I'm very excited about. I hope it works. So we're going to look at the impact rankings, which, as I mentioned earlier, we believe is a really game-changing new way of looking at excellence in higher education. So you may know Times Higher Education best for the World University Rankings. They were founded in 2004, but we feel that it is a comprehensive and a very balanced ranking, something that has really set the standard for what excellence in higher education looks like for many years since 2004 when it was first produced. But we feel that we can develop a broader range of metrics to be much more reflective of the diversity and the really exciting variety that we have in global higher education. And particularly with regards to COVID, we can look at universities in a different light. But this is just a quick look at the distribution of excellence in the world rankings. You can see there it's a ranking of almost, 1,500 universities in 2021. But we have an extraordinarily diverse spread across the world, but there is a very serious concentration of excellence in Western Europe in particular and North America. We can see great improvements and real success stories in rising East Asian nations. And I think the success story of the rankings this year was actually China. China's rise. We had a Chinese university make the top 20 in the world for the first time. That's Tsinghua. We doubled the number of top 100 universities from mainland China from 3 to 6, and we've seen East Asia rising, but the ranking's still primarily dominated by Western Europe and North America. And I think that's partly because of the way the ranking is conceived. The ideal version of a world-class research university that rankers have done so much to define is very much research intensive, usually comprehensive, with high repute, and you can see that in ranking methodology. So this is the Times Higher World Ranking Methodology, 13 separate metrics grouped into 5 core areas of performance: research, teaching, research impact, international outlook, and industry income. But when you take a closer look at this ranking, we are very confident and very proud that this is really comprehensive. 5 metrics around teaching excellence, for example, the only ranking to look at or the only of the key leading rankings to look at impact and innovation. But when you take a hard look, I think we have to be very honest and say it's very seriously dominated by research. We have 30% looking at research productivity, research income, and research reputation. And then we actually have more research when we look at co-authored, internationally collaborative research papers. And when we look at industry income and innovation, that's about pulling in research funding from the private sector. So it's very research-led. And then when you look at the reputational elements as well, a third of the ranking is based on subjective opinion surveys. It's expert opinion. It's the opinion of people who know what they're talking about, published experts in their fields. We're very comfortable with the rigor of that piece of work. But again, it does reflect perhaps more traditional notions of prestige. But as I said earlier, and as I think is absolutely true, there is not one single model of excellence in global higher education. We have many different missions, universities set up and created for different reasons in different countries. And yes, the world rankings have brought the sector together around this vision of a world-class research university, but we live in a diverse world with multiple needs. And if anything, the pandemic has really highlighted how important it is to look at things beyond just pure research prestige and look at the practical impact, the real world changes that universities can make beyond the super elite. So this classic cartoon rather amusingly, does suggest we need different metrics, different measures, and different tests to understand different missions. So Times Higher Education's mission is very much to explore universities in the round, to create a rich, diverse picture of universities. We don't want to promote homogenization. We don't want everybody to copy one another. We don't think that you'll get more excellent the more you look like a Harvard or a Stanford. We do understand the diversity of the sector. So we want to cover those three core missions: teaching, research, and knowledge transfer. Teaching is covered off with some great work we're doing for the Wall Street Journal and elsewhere, looking at student outcomes, student engagement. The flagship of the Wall Street Journal ranking is a survey of 100,000 US students, not about their satisfaction, but about their engagement with their learning, the challenge, the stretch, the critical thinking, the access to tutors. So that's really something we're excited about. But also knowledge, outcome-based metrics, not just saying who gets the best jobs, who has the highest salaries, but having an added value area there. So we recognize the university's contribution to taking the student on a journey. Of course, the world rankings, but the key for us was innovation and impact. So just to move to the next slide, we believe that there's no better time than to look very, very closely at a university's impact on the world, a university's responsibilities to the world, actually to make the world a better place. We've had the bushfires in Australia starting the year, putting a huge focus on climate change, the need for climate action, and universities' role there, and of course, the extraordinary coronavirus pandemic that has swept the world and changed everything in terms of digital transformation, in terms of how universities operate, but also, I think, reset the relationship between universities and their communities, really questioning and challenging universities in terms of their position in the world, with the rise of nationalism and the rise of protectionism, but also creating the opportunity for universities to reassert the real incredible positive impact they have on the world. So our response was the THE Impact Rankings. I genuinely believe this is a global game changer. We first published the rankings in April 2019. This is a ranking that really does look at excellence in a very different way, based entirely around the globally agreed, the hard-fought, painstakingly negotiated, but the real consensus around what we need to do as a global society, that the sustainable development goals. The reactions to this game-changing ranking have been really, really powerful. The World Economic Forum highlighted the fact that this is the world's first attempt to document evidence of universities' impact on society rather than just research and teaching performance. The Brookings Institute, Mesa Jalbot, a fellow there, referred to the Times Higher Education rankings as a welcome development that will elevate the public perception of the universities most committed to service to humanity. That's really, really exciting for us to be able to bring that issue to the fore. And universities themselves are seeing this as a really, really important initiative. Mark Charlton, Director of Public Engagement at De Montfort University, talked about how the rankings, the impact rankings, have helped focus minds. There's nothing like a ranking to grab attention, grab popular public attention, but also to be taken seriously by governments and, of course, by university leadership. So we've really helped focus minds. There's a lot of evidence we're seeing that universities, by participating in this ranking, have centralized their knowledge of the impact they're having. They've brought together an incredible diverse range of activities through teaching, through research, through knowledge transfer, through stewardship and outreach, and they've started collecting it and collating it centrally. So it's become much more significant at a strategic level, at a central leadership level, to support good practice, to support the development of universities in delivering the SDGs and proving their impact. So you see there Roger Smith, from a former head of policy at the New Zealand government, talking about this ranking measuring what matters rather than what can be counted easily. So I haven't got time to go into great detail on the methodology. I'm very, very open to questions, and of course, open to people discussing this with me after the session, on email, on social media. But I'll run through quickly the logic behind this exercise. Most importantly, the objectives, what we were trying to do. Well, first of all, just simply understand the positive effect universities make on the world beyond intellectual excellence and new knowledge creation that we see in world rankings. Show that the higher education sector is helping society, helping the world deliver the SDGs to make improvements to our shared global environment. Showcase excellence that's not visible in other rankings. We wanted to highlight good practice, provide evidence of activity that's hidden really to the world. And actually that can be used as a lobbying tool as well. Universities can use that to prove their impact, to prove their value to society, and to lobby for support for funding in times when actually public funding priorities are very stretched. And of course, we highlight good practice, which allows people to share and learn from one another. But we wanted also to be fair. We recognize that the current global rankings privilege wealth, privilege the universities that can pay huge salaries, build the super laboratories. There is an inequality of resources that is reflected in the world rankings. We wanted to stamp that out, to say that your contribution as a university can be just as important if you're contributing local employment, driving the local economy, if you're doing something innovative and pioneering to improve equality, or if you have niche areas of research very specific to your geography, whether that's clean water, life on land. We want to recognize and celebrate that, so you don't have to be a mega super comprehensive university to do well in this ranking. And just to move the slide on. So the key thing around being fair was we opened this one up. In the world rankings, you have to be a research-intensive university. There's no statistical validity if you're not publishing a minimum threshold of papers. We ask for 1,000 papers over a 5-year period to give us the statistical basis for the bibliometric analysis. But this one is open to any accredited university in good standing. 20,000 universities in theory can join this ranking. We wanted to minimize the demands on the university. So if you don't have a huge institutional research capacity, if you're not MIT with 20 full-time data specialists near the president's office, that we can still support your entry, so you can submit to as few SDGs as you want, but submitting to 3 plus 17 allows you to be ranked overall. But you can be ranked on individual SDGs if you're very specialist and focused, or you have a particular niche area. So it really levels the playing field. It's not about your capacity for institutional research. We've consulted very widely with the sector about metrics they want. We band the results to reflect statistical uncertainty as you get lower down in the rankings and the data gets more compressed. So we're very keen to make this fair and also to continually listen and learn and improve. So the basic concept is that we have 4 aspects of theory of change. So we're going to look at your research, we're going to look at your stewardship of your own resources, we'll look at your teaching, and we'll look at your outreach. So your outreach is your work with industry, your work with NGOs, your work with charities. Your stewardship is how you manage your own affairs. Are you implementing policies with your own campus, for example, on energy efficiency? Do you live the values of the SDGs around decent work, giving people secure jobs, secure employment? Are you promoting equal access and social mobility? All these things in your stewardship. And of course, your teaching and research, crucial. Are you contributing towards new knowledge through your research activities directly relevant to the SDGs? And are you handing down knowledge and awareness to the next generation? Again, I said we haven't got time for very detailed methodological analysis. It's incredibly complex. We have 17 individual rankings and an overall. But just by way of example, on SDG 13, climate action, we're looking at a range of metrics. Research, of course, provided through Elsevier, but low carbon use on the campus, and a whole range of external aspects. Looking at that in a little bit more detail, when we look at research, we look at the proportion of papers in the top 10% of journals that Scopus and Elsevier work with us on. We look at field-weighted citation impact, as we do with the world rankings, and we look at the volume of publications as well. But stewardship, we're looking at evidence. Do you provide education around the impact of climate change? Are you generating your own institutional action plan? Do you work with local or national governments? Are you collaborating with NGOs? So a very wide range of metrics are taken into account. And to create the overall ranking, as I say, we wanted to allow universities who had specialist niches and particular focuses, and also those who don't necessarily have vast institutional research expertise or resources, to be able to shine. So when we create the final ranking, we decided you must submit to SDG 17. That's partnerships for the goals. So for the first time ever, this is a ranking that really puts collaboration and partnership as a fundamental part of the ranking, to say it's not actually as much about competition, this ranking, it's more about demonstrating your activities, celebrating those activities, and actually learning from one another. So partnerships for the goal 17 is essential, and then we'll take the scores of your best 3 other SDGs to create the overall score. And just to say a bit about the extraordinary success of this ranking, I'm incredibly proud. Actually, I've been talking about measuring impact in rankings for many, many years, but the way I framed impact was really around the easy to measure stuff. So economic impact, for example, you can look at licensing and intellectual property and patents and patent citations, university industry collaboration. There's lots of metrics around innovation and economic impact, monetizing, commercializing ideas and innovations, and that's the way I was thinking. But actually working with Duncan Ross, the Chief Data Officer at Times Higher Education, we did believe, he led the agenda saying, we can do more, we can get a handle on a much broader range of impact. So much impact can't be measured, contribution to policy making, contributions to arts and cultural life, and it's very hard to measure, but actually we can use the SDGs to frame this. So the first ever exercise from scratch, from nothing, we had 560 institutions from 75 countries, volunteering a lot of information, a vast amount of activity, taking part in this new movement. And then last year, the second edition of the ranking, published in April, 585 institutions took part from 89 countries. And that is a big, big commitment. You can see there how different parts of the world have embraced this. And there's something that's really positive, actually, that we're seeing much more engagement from Africa than we see in the world rankings, much more engagement from South America. It's a more inclusive ranking. It's not about absolute wealth and the inequalities between the global north and the global south. It's much more open, much more celebratory of excellence in a wide range of activities. And the nice thing is that we've got literally millions of data points, but also vast swathes of evidence and vast swathes of information about how universities are contributing, what they're doing, what their policies look like, what their research is. And this is just a snapshot, an interesting snapshot. Say these were the most popular SDGs that universities submitted to. The most popular was number 4, that's quality education, closely followed by number 3, which is good health and well-being. I mean, how gratifying is that? This was collected just before the pandemic hit. We launched this in April, but universities were more likely to submit into the good health and well-being category than anyone else other than education. And I think that's really, really powerful evidence that universities are going to be the key to tackling the coronavirus crisis, the key to getting us out of this problem. The next best, most popular was gender equality. Great positive news there, given that we do have in many countries, a disproportionate problem with lack of diversity in the leadership teams. And then the next one was number 9, industry and innovation. Universities demonstrating, as I said earlier, that economic side of their innovation, their ability to power the knowledge economy. But it's interesting to look at regional differences. In Europe, they were more likely to submit to number 8, decent work, number 16, peace and justice and strong institutions, number 12, responsible consumption. Perhaps again, reflecting local issues or regional issues that were less likely to submit to number 1 and number 2, which is, of course, clean water. And number 2 is hunger. Clean water. But 1 is poverty and 2 is hunger. So there's a real sense there that in Europe, these are less pressing issues. Sadly, I think it's a global issue, but you can start seeing some interesting regional differences. Asia, very different picture. Asia much more likely to submit to number 6, SDG 6, clean water, more likely to submit to number 9, industry and innovation. Again, I think that perhaps reflects the extraordinary role of universities in South Korea and Singapore and mainland China to powering a new knowledge economy, to shifting those economies into future-facing knowledge and research-led economies. And it's something that's reflected in the rankings. They're more popular to submit to SDG 9, industry and innovation. And then life on land was a big one for Asia. Sadly, Asia was less likely to submit to gender equality. And just to really reflect again on the diversity issue, Times Higher Education really sincerely believes there isn't a single model of excellence. We shouldn't promote homogeneity. If you want to be a world-class research university, absolutely use the World University Rankings. That is your benchmark. That will give you the data that you need to compare yourself to the leading brands in the world, those with the superpowers around research. If that's your aspiration, if you're a flagship national institution, that's the right benchmark for you. If you're a student consumer, of course, they might be the ones you aspire to study at. But this opens things up. You can see that you can do amazing things that make the world a better place and not have the prestige of a Harvard, not have the huge endowments of a Harvard or a Stanford. And that's great. So you can see the distribution around top 100 positions. For example, there's far fewer top 100 North American universities in the impact ranking, but we have 3 from South America. Again, Australasia has done far better on impact than it does in the world rankings. Asia does better. Europe does better. So it's a lovely way of just rethinking excellence, understanding excellence is nuanced, it's multifaceted, it's varied, and it's diverse. Excuse me for a moment. I'm just going to get back onto my slide just to say a couple of key moments, and I have a few moments to take some questions, I believe. But one thing I want to stress, we're collecting data right now for the impact rankings. We've had unprecedented interest, but data collection closes on the 30th of November. So if you're interested in taking part this year, please get in touch. It's impact@timeshighereducation.com. Get involved. We'll be publishing that ranking at the Innovation and Impact Summit in Shenzhen with SUSTech on April the 23rd. It's a really exciting global movement. We'd love you to get involved, but get in touch if you have any questions, challenges, or you'd like to get involved. And that is me to say, you can also contact me directly, phil@timeshighereducation.com, or on Twitter, Phil_Beatty. But I believe there are some questions, and we have maybe 6 or 7 minutes to squeeze some in. So I hope the moderator, thank you very much. You can field a few questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. As you said, we have 2 extra questions for you from our viewers. And if you can please tell us, and I will read both of them for you, what are you planning to do to make the ranking methodology more transparent? And the other one is, are you planning to publish score indicators?
So the detailed decisions will come from my colleague Duncan Ross, the Chief Data Officer. But yes, I mean, I think one of the issues we have is, of course, we publish the rankings entirely freely on our website. There's a lot of data you can explore. But one of the commercial moves we've made is that we actually have a dashboard, a subscription-based data dashboard that universities can subscribe to. And that is opening up a lot more of the rich data beneath this ranking. And a great addition is that we're actually now able to share the documentation that universities submit as evidence for their policies and practices. So one of the things we're pushing is that we actually give credit and points for universities' policies on the SDGs being open access. So they provide us with evidence, but then they also can provide us with evidence that this is publicly available through a URL. So the really exciting thing there is that we can actually open up scrutiny of the documentation itself. So we can really create a situation where best practice is being shared, where people can actually read each other's documentation and build their own picture. So yeah, openness is an important part of our agenda. I think we're always balancing out how much we publish fully openly and how much we sort of have as part of a commercial offering. But for me, the principle is always as much as possible in front of any paywall and publicly available. But again, I'd recommend if you email impact@timeshighereducation.com. We're constantly evolving how we present the data. We're really learning how best to use the data, how best to deploy it and make it valuable and useful to the community. So I'd be really happy to pass on some of those questions to the data team around exactly how much we can do around scoring and sharing.
Thank you once again, and thank you for your answers. Phil baited the impact ranking. Ladies and gentlemen, in this way we reached the end of the first day of our conference. I would like once again to say thank you to all the hosts, all the speakers, and all of you, all the viewers. I hope you will be with us again tomorrow at the second day of Ireg Conference 2020. Thank you for being with us today. Have a great rest of the day, and goodbye.